The prison transport ship shook hard as it flew down through the purple sky of Prime. Inside the dark cargo area, Sergeant Park sat on a cold metal bench with his hands locked in glowing energy chains. Around him stood 12 alien guards. They were warriors, tall and strong, with dark red scales covering their bodies and eyes that burned like liquid gold. Did not move. He did not speak. He simply sat and breathed slowly while the ship carried him toward his death. 3 months ago, everything had been different. 3 months ago, he had been part of a crew, 200 humans aboard the diplomatic vessel called Horizon's Dawn. They had traveled across the stars to meet the hegemony and discuss peace, trade agreements, cultural exchange, a future where humans and could work together. That future died in fire and blood. They had attacked without warning. Their warships surrounded the Horizon's Dawn and opened fire before Captain Shin could even send a distress signal. Remembered the chaos, the screaming, the sound of metal tearing apart as plasma beams cut through the hull. He remembered Lieutenant Han shouting orders on the bridge while sparks rained down from broken systems. He remembered Chief Engineer running toward the engine room, trying to keep the ship alive for just a few more minutes. They all died, every single one of them. Survived only because he had been in the lower decks when the attack started. A piece of the ship broke off and drifted into space with him inside. They found him 2 days later, floating in the wreckage, barely alive. They did not kill him then. They had a better use for him. The High Council needed someone to blame for the failed peace talks. They told the galaxy that humans had attacked first. They said that humans were dangerous, violent, and could not be trusted. They called humanity a primitive contamination that needed to be removed from civilized space. And to prove their point, they needed a public execution. Was perfect for this. The last surviving human from the Horizon's Dawn. A soldier. Someone they could parade in front of the Galactic Assembly and kill as a warning to anyone who might support humanity in the future. For 3 months they kept him in a prison cell deep underground. They fed him just enough to stay alive. They asked him questions about Earth, about human military strength, about the locations of human colonies. He told them nothing. During those long, dark months, did one thing to keep his mind sharp. He learned. The guards talked around him constantly, thinking he could not understand their clicking, hissing language. They were wrong. Listened to every word. He memorized the sounds. He figured out the patterns. Within 6 weeks, he understood almost everything they said. He learned that they feared humans more than they admitted. He learned that the attack on the Horizon's Dawn had been ordered by High Arbiter herself, a powerful leader who saw humans as a threat to control of the sector. He learned that the execution would take place in an ancient arena, where a terrible creature called the Executioner would kill him in front of thousands of watching aliens. And he learned something else, something that gave him a small, strange feeling of hope. The Executioner was not a weapon, it was a prisoner too. The guards called it a dragon. They said it had been captured 300 years ago from a dying planet on the far edge of the galaxy. Its entire species had been destroyed. Its world had been burned. They had taken it as a trophy and used it to kill their enemies for centuries. Thought about this often as he sat alone in his cell, a creature taken from its home, forced to serve those who had destroyed everything it loved, made into a weapon against its will. He understood that feeling very well. Now, as the transport ship descended toward the capital city, looked out the small window at the world below. Prime was beautiful in a cold, hard way. Towers of crystal rose into the sky, catching the purple sunlight and throwing it back in 1,000 different colors. Floating platforms drifted between the buildings, carrying vehicles and people. Everything was precise and perfect and lifeless. One of the guards moved closer to him. This one was larger than the others, with a scar running across his snout. He looked at with something like curiosity. "The human does not shake," the guard said in his clicking language, speaking to his companion. "The human does not cry. They say humans cannot feel fear. the other guard replied. Their brains are too simple. They do not understand what is happening to them. Almost smiled at this, almost. He understood exactly what was happening to him. He knew that in less than an hour, he would stand in an arena filled with aliens who wanted to watch him die. He knew that a creature larger than any Earth animal would try to burn him alive or crush him under its feet. He knew that his chances of survival were nearly zero. But fear, no. He had moved past fear weeks ago. In the beginning, he had been afraid. In the first days after his capture, when the reality of his situation became clear, he had felt terror like he had never known before. He had thought about his family back on Earth. His mother, who had cried when he joined the military. His younger sister, who had sent him messages every week until the horizon's dawn went silent. He had wondered if they knew he was still alive. He had wondered if they were looking for him. Then the weeks passed and the fear changed. It became anger. Anger at them for their lies. Anger at himself for surviving when his friends had died. Anger at the universe for being so cruel and unfair. And then slowly the anger changed too. It became something else. Something harder and colder and more useful. Determination. Park decided that he would not give them the satisfaction of seeing him break. He would not scream. He would not beg. He would not run around the arena like a frightened animal while aliens laughed at him. Whatever happened, he would face it standing up with his eyes open like the soldier he had trained to be. If he had to die, he would die well. The ship landed with a heavy thump. The cargo door opened and bright purple light flooded inside. The guards grabbed by the arms and pulled him to his feet. Outside, he could see a massive structure in the distance. Walls that rose hundreds of meters into the sky, made from something that looked like white bone. An arena. The place where he would meet the executioner. The place where he would probably die. Crowds of aliens lined the streets, watching the prisoner transport pass by. Some of them shouted insults in languages did not recognize. Others simply stared with their strange, inhuman eyes. Walked forward one step at a time, the guards pushing him from behind. The energy chains around his wrists hummed softly. The sun felt warm on his face. He thought about his crew one more time. Captain Shin, who had believed so strongly in peace between species. Lieutenant Han, who had told jokes to keep everyone calm during the long voyage. Chief Engineer, who had shown pictures of his newborn son just days before the attack. They were gone. He could not bring them back. But maybe, somehow, he could make their deaths mean something. Did not know how. He did not have a plan. He only had a feeling deep inside his chest, a small voice that told him the story was not over yet. The arena grew larger as they approached. The crowd grew louder. The guards pushed him forward. And Park, the last human in this sector of space, walked toward his execution with his head held high. The arena of judgment was older than the civilization itself. According to the stories, ancient warriors had built it from the bones of a great creature that once swam through the skis of Prime. The walls were white and smooth, curving upward like ribs toward a sky that seemed very far away. The floor was covered in black sand that had absorbed the blood of thousands of prisoners over the centuries. Today, the arena was full. Every seat was taken. Creatures from 100 different worlds had come to watch the human die. Park stood in the center of the arena and looked up at the crowd. He had never seen so many different kinds of aliens in one place before. Some looked almost like animals from Earth, with fur and claws and teeth. Others were completely strange, with bodies made of crystal or liquid or something that hurt his eyes to look at directly. In one section, he saw creatures that seemed to be made entirely of light, shifting and glowing in colors that had no names in any human language. All of them were watching him, waiting for him to die. High above the arena floor, on a platform decorated with gold and precious stones, stood High Arbiter. But she had taken a human name as a joke after the war, a way to mock the species she had decided to destroy. Her scales were darker than the other, almost black, and her eyes burned with cold intelligence. She raised her hand, and the crowd fell silent. "Citizens of the Galactic Assembly," her voice echoed across the arena, made loud by invisible technology. "Today we gather to witness justice. Today we show the universe that the hegemony will not tolerate aggression from primitive species." Listened to her words and felt his anger rise. Aggression. They had attacked first. They had murdered 200 innocent people, and now they stood here talking about justice. "The human before you is a soldier," continued. "A killer trained by a violent species. His people came to our space with lies on their tongues and weapons hidden in their ships. They planned to destroy us. We stopped them." The crowd roared with approval, kept his face calm, showing nothing. "But we are not cruel," the High Arbiter said, and almost laughed at this. "We will give this human a chance to defend himself, a chance that his species never gave our diplomats." She smiled down at, and there was no warmth in that smile, only satisfaction, only hunger. "Bring forth the executioner." The crowd went quiet again, but this time the silence was different. This time could feel fear in the air, not fear of him, fear of what was coming. At the far end of the arena, a massive gate began to rise. The metal screamed as it moved, ancient mechanisms grinding after centuries of use. Behind the gate was darkness, pure, complete darkness. And in that darkness, something moved. Heard it before he saw it. A sound like stone sliding against stone, a deep breath that seemed to pull all the air out of the arena. Then 2 points of light appeared in the blackness. Eyes, burning with orange fire, looking directly at him. The creature stepped out of the shadows and understood why the crowd was afraid. The executioner was a dragon, not like the dragons in old Earth stories with their bat wings and lizard bodies. This was something else entirely, something older, something that had evolved on a world where the rules were different. It was 60 meters long from nose to tail. Its body was covered in scales that looked like polished metal, dark gray with edges that caught the light and turned it into rainbows. Its wings were folded against its sides but could tell they were enormous. When spread, they would block out the sun. Its head was long and narrow, filled with teeth the size of swords. And its eyes, those burning orange eyes, held an intelligence that surprised him. This was not a mindless beast. This was a thinking creature, a prisoner just like him. The dragon walked slowly into the arena, each footstep shaking the ground. The crowd pulled back in their seats, even though they were far above and protected by energy shields. They knew what this creature could do. They had seen it kill before. Was still smiling. "The executioner has served us faithfully for 300 years. It has killed over 10,000 prisoners in this arena. None have survived longer than 30 seconds. She paused, letting her words sink in. "Release the human's chains. Let him face his death with whatever dignity his primitive species can manage." A guard pressed a button and the energy shackles around his wrists disappeared. He was free. Free to run, free to fight, free to die. The dragon stopped about 50 meters away from him. It tilted its head, studying him with those intelligent eyes, studied it back. In the archives of the Horizon's dawn, during those long months of preparation for the diplomatic mission, had read everything he could find about the different species of the galaxy. He had learned about them, of course, but he had also found older files, files about species that no longer existed, worlds that had been destroyed. One of those files had mentioned a species of creatures that lived on a planet called. They were intelligent. They were powerful. They could breathe fire hot enough to melt starship hulls, and they had been completely wiped out 300 years ago when they burned their world to take their resources. The file had included a few words of their language, simple phrases that researchers had managed to record before the species disappeared forever. Had memorized those words. At the time, he did not know why. Something had just told him they might be important. Now, standing in the arena with the last survivor of that dead species looking at him, he understood. The dragon took another step forward. The ground shook. Someone in the crowd screamed. Did not run. He did not try to fight. Instead, he did something that no one in that arena expected. He bowed. It was a deep bow, the kind you would give to someone you respected greatly. Bent at the waist and lowered his head, exposing the back of his neck. A sign of trust. A sign that he was not a threat. The crowd murmured in confusion, even looked surprised. The dragon stopped moving. Its head lowered, bringing those enormous eyes closer to the small human figure. It breathed in deeply, taking in scent, learning him. Straightened up slowly, he looked into those burning eyes and saw something there. Pain, loneliness, centuries of being forced to kill for the creatures that had destroyed everything he loved. The dragon was not a monster. The dragon was a victim. "I know what they did to your world," said softly. He spoke in the language of the dragon's dead species. The words felt strange on his tongue, clicks and hums that human throats were not designed to make. But he tried his best. "I know they burned it." The dragon went completely still. "I know you are the last of your kind," continued. "I am also the last of my crew, maybe the last human in this part of space. We are the same, you and I." The crowd could not hear what he was saying. They only saw a small human standing before a massive dragon, not running, not screaming, just talking. Smile had disappeared. Something was wrong. The executioner should have attacked by now. The executioner always attacked. The dragon lowered its head until its eye was level with his face. That eye was larger than his entire body. He could see himself reflected in it, small and fragile and completely at this creature's mercy. But he was not afraid, because in that eye he saw something he recognized. Hope. "I am not your enemy," said quietly. "I never was. The ones who hurt you are up there watching. The ones who destroyed your home. The ones who made you a slave." The dragon looked at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, it looked up at the platform where High Arbiter stood. And its eyes began to glow brighter. The arena had gone completely silent. Thousands of aliens held their breath as the dragon stared at the small human standing before it. No one moved. No one spoke. The only sound was the soft whisper of wind across the black sand. Park kept his eyes fixed on the dragon's face. Up close, he could see details he had missed before. Scars crossed the creature's scales in dozens of places, marks left by weapons and chains over 300 years of captivity. One of its horns had been broken off, leaving a jagged stump. Around its neck, almost hidden beneath layers of scales, could see a metal collar embedded in its flesh. A control device, he guessed. Something that used to cause pain when the dragon did not obey. This creature had suffered more than could imagine. Yet here it was, still alive, still fighting, still holding onto something that looked very much like a soul. The dragon breathed in again and felt the pull of air against his face. It was studying him, learning him, trying to understand what kind of creature would stand before death and show no fear. Spoke again in the dragon's language, pushing the strange sounds through his throat. "They took everything from you, your family, your home, your freedom. They made you into a weapon." The dragon's eyes flickered, understanding. "They did the same to me," continued. "My ship was called Horizon's Dawn. We came in peace. We wanted to be friends with we wanted to trade and learn and share knowledge across the stars." He paused, feeling the weight of memory press against his chest. "They killed everyone, 200 people, my captain, my friends, people I had trained with for years, people I loved. They murdered them all and then blamed us for the attack." The dragon made a low sound deep in its throat, not a growl, something sadder. "Now I am the last," said, "just like you. They brought me here to die, to make an example, to show the galaxy that humans are weak and dangerous and deserving of destruction." He shook his head slowly. "But I am not weak, and neither are you." High above them on her golden platform had finally realized that something was very wrong. The executioner should have attacked by now. In 300 years, it had never hesitated this long. It always killed quickly, efficiently, without mercy. That was what made it such a perfect weapon. "What is happening?" she demanded, turning to her guards. "Why is it not attacking?" The guards had no answer. They had never seen anything like this. "Kill him," shouted down at the arena. "Kill the human now." The dragon heard her voice. Its head turned slowly, looking up at the platform where the High Arbiter stood. Its eyes burned brighter. But it did not attack. Instead, it lowered its massive head until its snout touched the black sand. Its wings folded tight against its body. Its tail curled around its feet. And in a gesture that no one in that arena had ever witnessed before, the dragon bowed. The executioner, the terror of the arena, the killer of 10,000 prisoners, bowed before the human. The crowd erupted in chaos. Aliens screamed and shouted in dozens of different languages. Some tried to flee, pushing against each other in their panic. Others stood frozen, unable to believe what they were seeing. His face twisted with rage. "This is impossible. The control collar. Activate the control collar." One of her guards fumbled with a device on his belt. He pressed a button. The metal collar around the dragon's neck began to glow red, sending waves of pain through the creature's body. The dragon roared. The sound was like a mountain being torn apart. It shook the arena walls and sent cracks spreading across the ancient bone structure. But the dragon did not attack. It did not rise from its bow. It simply endured the pain, eyes squeezed shut, body trembling. Felt something break inside him. Watching this proud creature suffer for refusing to kill him, watching it choose torture over obedience, he understood something important. This was not about survival anymore. This was about freedom. He ran forward and put his hands on the dragon's snout. The scales were warm under his palms, hard as steel but somehow alive. The dragon opened one eye and looked at him. The collar said, "Where is the weak point?" The dragon made a small motion with its head, pointing toward the back of its neck. Understood. He climbed up onto the dragon's head, grabbing onto scales and ridges, pulling himself higher. The crowd watched in stunned silence. Was screaming at her guards to do something to stop him, but no one moved. What could they do? The executioner had chosen its side. Reached the collar. Up close, he could see how it worked. Metal bands dug into the dragon's flesh, connected to a central control unit that pulsed with red light. Years of engineering training from his military service told him what to look for. Every device had a weakness. Every system had a point of failure. There, a junction where the power supply connected to the pain transmitters. If he could break that connection, the collar would be useless. He grabbed the junction with both hands and pulled. The metal resisted. Pain shot through his arms. His muscles screamed in protest, but did not let go. He thought about Captain Shin. He thought about Lieutenant Han. He thought about Chief Engineer and all the others who had died believing in peace between species. He pulled harder. With a crack that echoed across the arena, the junction broke. The collar went dark. The red glow faded. The dragon let out a long breath as 300 years of pain finally stopped. Then it rose to its full height, wings spreading wide, blocking out the purple sun. It was magnificent. It was terrifying. It was free. The dragon looked down at, still standing on its neck. In that ancient language, in a voice like thunder rolling through mountains, it spoke one word. Rider. Did not fully understand what that word meant, but he felt its weight. In the dragon's culture, in its dead civilization, that word had meant something important. A bond, a partnership, a connection between two souls that chose each other. The dragon had chosen him. "I accept," said. He did not know if that was the right response. He only knew it was the truth. The dragon turned its head towards platform. Fire gathered in its throat, visible through the scales as an orange glow that grew brighter and brighter. "No," screamed. No, you cannot. I am the High Arbiter, I am. The dragon breathed. Fire erupted from its mouth in a stream of pure white heat, not orange like normal fire, not even blue, white like the heart of a star. The platform where stood simply disappeared, vaporized in an instant along with everyone on it. The crowd fled. Aliens trampled over each other trying to reach the exits. Guards dropped their weapons and ran. Energy shields flickered and died as the heat overwhelmed them. Held on tight as the dragon spread its wings and lifted into the air. The downdraft knocked dozens of aliens off their feet. The arena walls cracked and groaned as the creature rose higher and higher. In moments they were above the arena. The capital city of Prime spread out below them, a maze of crystal towers and floating platforms. Could see military ships scrambling to take off, trying to intercept them. But they were too slow. They had never expected a threat from inside their own execution grounds. The dragon's voice rumbled through his mind, not spoken aloud but somehow understood. It told him its name. Not the title that had given it, executioner, but its true name. In the dragon's language, it meant last flame of the western mountains, a name that carried the memory of a home that no longer existed. Last flame said out loud, "That is a good name." The dragon made a sound that might have been agreement, or maybe it was just happy to hear its real name spoken after so long. "Can you understand where I want to go?" asked. "The prison complex. There might be other humans there, other prisoners." The dragon understood. It always had. 300 years of captivity had not dulled its mind. It had simply been waiting, waiting for someone worthy, waiting for a rider. Wings beating against the purple sky, Last Flame turned toward the prison complex on the horizon. The real fight was just beginning. The prison complex of Prime was a massive structure built into the side of a mountain. Its walls were made of dark metal that absorbed light instead of reflecting it. Guard towers rose from every corner, armed with weapons designed to stop anything from escaping. For 300 years, no prisoner had ever broken free from this place. That record was about to end. Last Flame descended from the sky like a falling star. The guards in the towers saw it coming and opened fire. Plasma bolts streaked through the air, bright blue against the purple sky. But the dragon's scales were harder than any metal that could make. The weapons did nothing but make small sparks where they hit. Last Flame breathed fire. The first guard tower disappeared in a ball of white flame. Then the second. Then the third. Within 30 seconds, every defensive position around the prison entrance had been destroyed. Alarms screamed across the complex. Prisoners looked up from their cells, wondering what was happening. The dragon landed in the courtyard, its claws digging deep grooves into the stone, jumped down from its neck and ran toward the main door. It was sealed, locked with codes and biometric scanners that should have been impossible to break. Last Flame simply melted it. Inside, chaos had already begun. Guards were running in every direction, some trying to fight, others trying to flee. None of them expected what they saw. A human, covered in dust and ash, walking calmly through the smoke with a dragon's shadow behind him. Grabbed a fallen guard's communication device and studied it quickly. Technology was different from human technology, but the basic principles were the same. Data networks, communication channels, command structures. He found what he was looking for, a list of all prisoners currently held in the complex. And there, near the bottom, a category he had not expected to see. Species human, number of prisoners 47. His heart stopped. 47 humans. They had told him he was the last. They had told the entire galaxy that all humans in this sector had been killed or driven away. But here were 47 more, hidden in cells deep underground, kept alive for reasons could not yet understand. The had lied again. Found a terminal and began working. His military training had included basic hacking skills, just enough to access enemy systems in an emergency. This was definitely an emergency. After several minutes of trying different approaches, he managed to open a communication channel that broadcast across the entire prison. "This is Sergeant Park of the Earth vessel Horizon's Dawn," he said, his voice echoing through every cell in the complex. "I am here with a friend. We are taking this prison. If you are a prisoner, stay calm. Help is coming. If you are a guard, surrender now and you will not be harmed. Fight us and you will lose." He paused, then added one more thing. "To any humans who can hear this, you are not alone anymore. I am coming for you." Deep in the prison, in cells scattered across different levels, 47 humans heard his voice. Some of them cried. Some of them laughed. One of them, a young woman named who had been captured from a mining colony 6 months ago, simply smiled and whispered, "Finally." Found the control room after fighting through 2 groups of guards who refused to surrender. He was not a skilled fighter, but desperation and anger made up for his lack of training. By the time he reached the central computer, his hands were bruised and bloody, but he was still standing. The central computer controlled everything in the prison: cell doors, security systems, communications. With access to this system, he could free every prisoner at once. He could also do something else. The terminal showed him that the prison's communication array was connected to a network that spanned the entire sector. Emergency channels, military frequencies, civilian broadcasts. If he sent a message here, it would reach every corner of space. Thought about this for a moment, then he began to type. His message was simple. He identified himself. He explained what had happened to the Horizon's Dawn. He described the lies that had told about humanity. And then he said something that would change everything. "I know there are more humans out there. I know they have been capturing our people and hiding them. I know they told you that you were alone, that no help was coming, that humanity had abandoned you. They lied. I am here, and I am not going to stop until every human in this sector is free." He pressed send. The message went out across 1,000 different channels, bouncing between relay stations and communication satellites, spreading across light years of space in minutes. It reached hidden labor camps where humans worked under armed guards. It reached prison ships drifting between stars. It reached colonies that had been told their distress calls would never be answered. And everywhere it reached, something began to change. Meanwhile, Last Flame was busy outside. The military had finally organized a response. Warships appeared in the sky above the prison, dozens of them, armed with weapons that could level cities. They formed a circle around the complex and demanded surrender. The dragon looked up at them and made a sound that might have been laughter. What they did not understand was that Last Flame was not just old. It was ancient. Its species had traveled between stars before they had learned to make fire. It had fought in wars that shaped the galaxy. It had survived the destruction of its entire world. These warships were impressive by standards. By the standards of a creature that remembered the true age of the universe, they were toys. Last Flame took to the sky. Its wings beat once, twice, and it was among them. Fire erupted in all directions, not the white-hot breath it had used before, but something more controlled. Precise bursts that targeted engines and weapon systems. The dragon was not trying to kill everyone. It was trying to disable the fleet without unnecessary death. This surprised when he saw it through the window of the control room. He had expected rage. He had expected destruction. But Last Flame was showing mercy to enemies who had shown it none for 300 years. Perhaps that was the difference between them and Perhaps that was what it really meant to be free. One by one, the warships fell from the sky, their systems destroyed but their crews still alive. They crashed into the mountains around the prison, sending up clouds of dust and debris. Within 10 minutes, the entire fleet had been defeated. Last Flame landed back in the courtyard, barely breathing hard. Inside the prison, finally found the release command for the cell doors. He pressed it. Across the complex, thousands of doors slid open at once. Prisoners of dozens of different species stumbled out into the hallways, confused and afraid and hopeful all at the same time. Guards who had not already fled dropped their weapons and raised their hands in surrender. And in the human section, 47 people walked free for the first time in months or years. Met them in the main courtyard. They gathered around him, these survivors of ships and colonies and outposts that they had attacked, young and old, men and women, scientists and soldiers and farmers and teachers. They looked at him with eyes that had seen too much pain and now, finally, saw something else. Hope. My name is Park, he said to them. I was on the horizon's dawn. I thought I was the last human in this sector. I was wrong. He looked at each of them, memorizing their faces. They wanted to kill us all. They wanted to erase humanity from this part of the galaxy. They failed. We are still here, and now we are going to fight back. A young man stepped forward. His name was, and he had been a pilot before his ship was captured. How? He asked. We have no weapons, no ships, no support from Earth. How can we fight an empire? Smiled and pointed at the sky, where last flames circled overhead. We have something better than weapons, he said. We have a friend, and we have each other. They think humans are weak because we have short lives and soft bodies. They do not understand us. They do not know what we are capable of when we work together. He raised his voice so everyone could hear. My message went out across the sector. Other humans will hear it. Other prisoners will hear it. This is not just about us anymore. This is about showing the galaxy that humanity will not be erased, that we will stand up for each other, that we will never stop fighting for our freedom. The crowd was silent for a moment. Then the young woman from the mining colony raised her fist in the air. For the horizon's dawn, she said. For the horizon's dawn, the others repeated, 47 voices joining together. Felt something warm spread through his chest. For the first time since the attack, he did not feel alone. All right, he said, let us begin. 6 months had passed since the day the dragon bowed. In that time, everything had changed. The hegemony, once the most powerful force in the sector, had collapsed into chaos. Their high arbiter was dead. Their military had suffered defeat after defeat. Their lies had been exposed to the entire galaxy. And humanity had risen. His message had spread farther than he ever imagined. Across the sector, humans who had been hiding or imprisoned heard his words and found courage. They organized. They fought back. They freed each other from labor camps and prison ships. Within weeks, what started as 47 survivors became hundreds. Within months, it became thousands. They called themselves the Human Expeditionary Force, and Park was their leader. Not because he had asked for the position, not because he had any special qualifications, simply because he had been first, because he had stood before a dragon and refused to be afraid, because he had shown everyone that even the smallest, weakest creature could change the course of history if they had enough courage. Now stood in the great chamber of the Galactic Assembly, wearing a clean uniform for the first time in months. The room was enormous, a sphere of crystal and light floating in space above a neutral planet. Representatives from 100 different species sat in curved rows that rose toward the ceiling, each section decorated with the symbols of their world. Through the great windows behind the central podium could see last flame. The dragon circled the station slowly, a reminder to everyone present of what had happened. Some of the representatives looked nervous. Others seemed curious. A few, noticed, looked at the dragon with something like respect. The ambassador drifted forward to begin the proceedings. There were beings of pure light, ancient and mysterious, who rarely involved themselves in the affairs of other species. That they had called this meeting themselves showed how important they considered the situation. The Galactic Assembly recognizes the presence of Park, representative of the human species, they said. Its voice was like music, changing pitch and tone in ways that seemed to carry meaning beyond the words themselves. We have gathered to discuss the events of the past 6 months and to determine the future relationship between humanity and the Galactic Assembly. Bode respectfully, thank you for this opportunity to speak. Before we continue, the said, there is a matter that must be addressed. The former hegemony has filed a formal complaint against humanity. They claim that your species committed unprovoked aggression against their people and property. They demand punishment. A murmur ran through the chamber. The section was mostly empty, their government having collapsed, but a few representatives remained, looking at with undisguised hatred. "May I respond?" asked. They made a gesture that meant permission was granted. Looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of as many species as he could. Some looked away, others held his gaze. 6 months ago, he began, I stood in an arena on Prime, waiting to be executed. They told the galaxy that I was a war criminal, that my people had attacked their diplomats without reason, that humanity was a primitive, violent species that needed to be contained. He paused. They lied. The murmuring grew louder, waited for it to quiet down before continuing. They attacked our ship first. The Horizon's Dawn was a diplomatic vessel carrying 200 people, scientists, translators, cultural experts. They came in peace, hoping to establish friendly relations with the hegemony. Instead, they were murdered. He pulled out a small device and activated it. A hologram appeared in the center of the chamber, showing records recovered from the wreckage of the Horizon's Dawn. Flight data, communication logs, video footage from the final moments before the attack. This is the truth, said. They destroyed our ship without warning. They captured survivors and held them as prisoners. They told the galaxy that humanity was the aggressor while secretly keeping our people in labor camps across the sector. The chamber erupted in discussion. Species argued with each other, pointing at the evidence, questioning its authenticity, debating what it meant. The remaining representatives tried to object, but their voices were lost in the noise. They raised a tendril of light, and silence fell immediately. We have examined this evidence, they said. We have also examined other sources, including testimony from former officials and records recovered from their government systems. The evidence supports the humans' claims. The section went very quiet. The question before this assembly, they continued, is not whether they committed crimes against humanity. That has been established. The question is what comes next. Stepped forward. I would like to answer that question if I may. They paused for a moment, then made the gesture of permission again. Many of you expected revenge, said. You thought that if humanity gained power, we would use it to destroy them completely, that we would burn their worlds the way they tried to burn ours. He shook his head. That is not who we are. That is not what we want. He looked at the dragon through the window. Last Flame had stopped circling and was floating in place, watching the proceedings through the crystal walls. I have learned something in the past 6 months, said. I learned it from a dragon who had every reason to hate. For 300 years they kept Last Flame as a prisoner. They used him as a weapon. They caused him pain whenever he disobeyed. They killed his entire species and destroyed his world. His voice grew softer. When Last Flame was finally free, when he had the power to destroy everything they had built, do you know what he did? He showed mercy. He disabled their ships instead of destroying them. He defeated their military without unnecessary killing. He chose to be better than those who had hurt him. Turned back to face the assembly. Humanity will make the same choice. We do not want war, we never did. We wanted trade, cooperation, friendship across the stars. They chose violence and we defended ourselves. But now that the fighting is over, we choose peace. A representative from a species did not recognize stood up. It was tall and thin, with skin that shifted colors as it spoke. What do you want from the assembly? 3 things, said. First, we want recognition. Humanity should be acknowledged as a sovereign species with the same rights and responsibilities as any other member of the Galactic Assembly. Second, we want justice. They must pay reparations to the survivors of their attacks and return any human prisoners still being held. Third, we want a seat at the table, a voice in the decisions that affect our future. He spread his hands. We do not ask for more, but we will no longer accept less. The discussion that followed lasted for hours. Species debated among themselves. Arguments were made for and against. The remaining tried to defend their actions, but their words fell flat against the weight of evidence. Finally, they called for a vote. The result was not unanimous. A few species sided with the out of fear or old alliances, but the majority agreed. Humanity was formally recognized as a sovereign species of the Galactic Assembly. They were ordered to pay reparations and release all remaining prisoners, and a seat was created for humanity to be filled by a representative of their choosing. The chamber erupted in a mix of applause and quiet acceptance. Felt his legs shake beneath him. Months of tension, months of fighting, months of wondering if any of this would matter, and now it was real. Humanity had a place among the stars. Later, after the formalities were over, stood alone on an observation deck looking out at the galaxy. Stars stretched in every direction, billions of points of light, each one a sun with its own worlds and peoples and stories. Somewhere out there was Earth, his mother, his sister, a home he had not seen in years and might never see again. But he would try. Now that humanity had standing in the assembly, they could establish proper communication channels. They could send word back to Earth about what had happened. They could begin the long process of connecting there to the rest of the galaxy. The future was uncertain, but it was no longer hopeless. He heard the sound of massive wings and looked up. Last Flame descended from above the station, somehow finding a way to be near the observation deck despite the size difference. The dragon's eye appeared in the window, orange and warm and full of ancient wisdom. "Thank you," said, "for everything." The dragon made a sound low in its throat. In their shared language, it meant something like gratitude returned and bonds strengthened, and the journey continues all at once. "What will you do now?" asked. "You are free, you can go anywhere." Last Flame considered this for a moment. Then it spoke, the rumbling words forming in its mind. "I have wandered alone for 300 years. I have been a prisoner and a weapon and a monster in the eyes of those who feared me. Then I met a human who saw something else, who spoke my language, who called me by my true name." The dragon's eye focused on, with an intensity that made him feel very small and very important at the same time. "I am old. My species is gone. I thought I had nothing left to live for except revenge. But you showed me another way. You showed me that even after losing everything, it is possible to find new purpose." Felt tears forming in his eyes. "Where you go, I will go," Last Flame said. "Your enemies will be my enemies. Your friends will be my friends. This is the bond of rider and dragon, and it does not break." The human reached out and placed his hand against the window. On the other side, the dragon pressed its snout against the same spot, scales meeting glass. "Then let us build something together," said. "Something that will last longer than both of us. Something that will show the galaxy what is possible when different species choose trust over fear." Last Flame made the sound that meant agreement. Behind them, the stars continued to shine. Billions of worlds, billions of possibilities, a universe that had just become a little bit larger, a little bit brighter, a little bit more full of hope. The story was not over. In many ways, it was just beginning. But for now, standing together in the light of distant suns, the human and the dragon allowed themselves a moment of peace. They had earned it.